Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and this is the Penguin Classics book tag. It's a little extra class edition. This was created by Steve Donahue, I think like 2 weeks ago. I love the Penguin Classics, but I didn't do this because I had some other things going on, like my sneaky arthropod book tag. So I thought it was time to jump in for this week on Tag Tuesday. First prompt, Penguin Classics are the best reprint volumes in the whole world. How many do you own? I counted 137. That there might be some others in my classroom at work. I know there are some others in my classroom at work, and I'm not sure how many there are. I thought that number would be a lot lower because I was like, oh, I just keep them on this one shelf, which is double stacked, and then I have just a few others. And I thought, well, no, the deluxe editions over here and out in the dining room, and my Penguin Classics that are from Asia and have the green bar are over here, the mass markets. And so it just kept accruing and accruing. I went, oh my gosh, I have a lot. Love them. Prompt 2, penguins evolved roughly 70 million years ago. What's your history with Penguin Classics? A very good one, certainly not a love-hate relationship. So one of the first things I learned as I was reading, and I would go to bookstores, and maybe I was there to find one or two books, but whether it was used or new bookstores, I was there to find one or two books, and then I would maybe have 10 minutes to browse. And so I might browse sections, and there were certain sections where, notably not the science fiction and mystery sections, where you could find, these black spines. And there were a couple of books I had picked up, and I liked them. I liked how so many of them would have notes or appendices at the back that gave more information around the text. This was just before Wikipedia was taking off, and so critical materials were very, very helpful. I also enjoyed the introductions, although I realized they were filled with spoilers, and so what I needed to do was read maybe the first page of the introduction, and then go jump in and read the text, and then go back and read the introduction at the end. But also they had this one does. It had that smell like vinegar that just gives them that old classical feel. The type of thing you're going to read while you're wearing tweed, if you know what I mean. And so I really enjoyed the editions, and over time I found that it was very easy. If I was just running into a used bookstore, I wasn't going to have a lot of time. It was easy to sort of just scan the shelves, and you could spot the black spines and then see, okay, what is that? What is that? What is that? And I've developed that with some other publishing companies over time, but the Penguin Classics, especially the black spines, it's the easiest one to do it with. So as 137, I clearly enjoy them. Prompt 3, the Penguin Classics logo is a penguin, the world's most famous flightless bird. What's a classic that just didn't take flight for you? Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, actually in the Penguin Classics edition, translated by Pevyar Molkanovsky. I never really got interested in the characters. I didn't want to spend time with Vronsky. I didn't want to spend time with Anna Karenina. I certainly didn't want to spend time with her husband, Karenina. I didn't even really want to spend that much time with Levin. Kitty was interested, was interesting. And Levin's older brother, who's kind of a bizarre, recluse or academic or something, he seemed interesting, and I love everything else I've ever read by Tolstoy. I've read volumes of his short stories, dipped into War and Peace and enjoyed that. I've read the Viking Portable Tolstoy. I really enjoy all of those. Not Anna Karenina. I read the final 300 pages in one day just to be done with it and put it aside. So, that. Prompt 4, the emperor penguin is the most recognizable species, but the Adélie is everybody's favorite. What are your favorite Penguin Classics? Well, I sort of cheated and grabbed a couple. So there are the Penguin Classics mass market editions. Most of mine are French writers, so Zola, Guy de Maupassant, Pascal, and then Nietzsche and Ibsen and some works like that. So I'm going to kind of cheat on the mass markets and go with Winesburg, Ohio by Sherwood Anderson, even though this isn't technically a Penguin Classic edition. It's a Penguin book. And I love the stories in here. I like these more than F. Scott Fitzgerald's stories. I think the people in them are very interesting. They seem very human, and they just are filled with emotion. So I really enjoyed that book, and I return to it frequently. My favorite color is green, and so even though the black spine is my favorite, hence, when I realized that, the older Penguin Classics had the purple bar in the U.S. It had the purple bar for Greek and like Roman classics. It had a red bar at the top, black spine with a red bar at the top for books that had been originally published in English, whether that was Chaucer and Geoffrey Monmouth and folks like that, all the way through to Anthony Hope's Prisoner of Zenda and Rupert of Hentzau. And then there was yellow for other European languages that were post-classical and not English. So French, German, Italian, Spanish, Norwegian, whatever. Russian got the yellow bar. And then my favorite color is green. All of the other world languages got the green bar. And I slowly realized, I like those editions more than the black spines. So I have about a dozen of the green bar Penguin Classics. My favorite of those is Mencius, a post-Confucian philosopher heavily influenced by Confucius, but I think maybe more practical in terms of his applications of thought. And I read the poems of the late Taang or Tang in early April and absolutely loved it, but I don't want to go with any recency bias, which affects my next pick too. I just finished Ovid's Metamorphoses in the Penguin Classics just over a week ago and was fascinated by that. That might be my favorite black spine penguin, but the one that I've read so many times and I've known I just know inside and out is Robert Fagel's translation of the Oresteia by Aeschylus. The Agamemnon, it's fantastic. Libation Bearers, it's just filled with fury and passion. And then the Eumenides, where we get this bizarre etiology on trial by jury and the Athenian law code. And we have the worst legal arguments ever about whether a person's duty is to a mother or father, and it's just nonsense, but it's so interesting, and the translation is incredible. So this is my favorite black spine, and let's see if I get the vinegar. Just slightly, not as intensely as in Machiavelli's Discourses. And then of course there are Penguin Classics Deluxe editions. I love these, they are gorgeous and beautiful. I especially love the new translations of Proust's In Search of Lost Time. We keep these and some others out on a bookshelf in the dining room. It's a very pretty bookshelf. And the books are much prettier though. Just not as pretty as my wife and daughters. This is a gorgeous book. My daughter loves the Proust books, and she calls them the penguins and can I read Proust, Dad? And she'll go and pull them down, and we'll just sit down and open up to any page, and you just kind of, it's like jumping into, the ocean. It's there, it envelops you immediately. And this is one I really enjoy. It's a gorgeous cover though, blue with the fuchsia flower buds opening, In the Shadow of Young Girls and Flower, the second volume. And I think it's because it's not claustrophobic, we get out to Normandy and we enjoy, the coast and spending time outside doing things, which doesn't happen much in Proust. And it's also not weirdly fixated on carnal ideas. So that's just one I really enjoy. Moving forward. Prompt 5. Penguin Classics began in 1946 with E.V. Rieu's translation of the Odyssey, which I read in a Penguin Classic mass market when I was pretty young, and the Iliad. What's your favorite book from 1946 on, or from the 1940s in general? I grabbed two. The Iceman Cometh by Eugene O'Neill, which is set in turn of the century New York at a bar / boarding house, and deals with some failed anarchists, some Boer War veterans, a hickey who is a traveling salesman, and it's just fascinating. It's very dark, but just fascinating and weird. And then Nightmare Alley by William Lindsay Gresham, also published in 1946. It's a crime novel, but it's a weird crime novel. It's a character. The main character starts as a young man with a traveling carnival. He seduces the fortune teller and learns how to become a fortune teller / con artist, and then we get his rise and then downfall. And the downfall is very bleak, but it's such a weird book. What a weird story, and absolutely fascinating. Like these were things that could be happening at a traveling carnival in the U.S. A few generations ago. So Nightmare Alley. It was also adapted as a film, I believe, with Tyrone Power in the main role. So those are two. If you've never read Nightmare Alley, I would check it out. Prompt 6. Penguin Classics tries to enshrine the classics of literature. Name some books you'd like to see enshrined. So they do a great job of reprinting Plato. And I guess my question is, where's Parmenides? I know, like, he's gone to dust thousands of years ago. But where's Plato's Parmenides? The text. I don't think there's ever been a Penguin Classic of that. They also could reprint Theaetetus while they're at it. They have so many good Plato texts. Like, we just finish it out. Come on. Parmenides is worth exploring. Much better than every part of the symposium except for that bizarre bit where Aristophanes talks, which is fantastic. Sorry for the aside. The Voynich manuscript with like the pictures and the weird text that nobody's ever deciphered. I think that would be really cool. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms by Luo Guanzong. I'm probably butchering that. That's a Chinese classic. They did do, Penguin Classics did The Dream of the Red Chamber. They printed it as The Story of the Stone, or Story of a Stone, in like 5 books. Romance of the Three Kingdoms is about 1,500 pages, and I think my edition is 3 books. Penguin Classics does an abridged version of it, and it's a historical novel, but it's in novel, like it's a Chinese novel, so it's a little different from maybe what we would think of as a novel, but it very much is feels like a historical novel, and it's filled with adventure and these large-in-life personalities who really existed. Liu Bao, Liu Bei, Cao Cao, like they existed in real life, and they worked as warlord general kings to try and bring some type of order to the chaos that existed at their time. So I think that should be unabridged and available. The Penguin Classics do not do right by sci-fi or crime. I realize vintage crime exists, but there are vintage crime texts that have gone out of print. David Goodis is a good example. Now, Library of America has a David Goodis volume, but there are so many good, solid crime novels from the 20th century, both by men and women. I don't think they ever did In a Lonely Place, which is a fantastic crime novel written by one Dorothy Hughes, I believe. And so crime novels would be great. And then science fiction, I would say, I know they've started doing some science fiction. I haven't looked too closely at that because I have, like old 70s paperbacks. But there's so much great science fiction. Stand on Zanzibar, Gateway, Ringworld, Dangerous Worlds, the Dangerous Worlds anthology. That should be reprinted. So those, and I want to avoid Library of America anthologies, so I won't hit as many U.S. authors, but Richard Wilbur's translations of French drama, Molière, Racine, I think he even did a volume with like the Cid by Cornell. Those could be collected really well. And then the last one, pre-Columbian texts, and not just anything, don't just throw anything that sticks onto the page, but there are some worthwhile ones, like 8 Deer Jaguar Claw, about a Mixtec sort of warrior king who created a fairly large and stable society in Central America, and then ultimately was captured in battle and sacrificed. But it exists in a codex, and it's primarily pictorial, but they're, you know, you could print the pictures and then have some text, like, you know, explaining what the pictures mean. And that would be fascinating, both visually and, you know, textually, and very valuable. And then the last thing is they bought out the Viking portable libraries and brought out these trade paperbacks in like the 80s and 90s that were less than stellar. Not the books, but like the binding isn't quite as good as the Penguin Classics, like black spine binding. So I think, you know, just Age of Reason reader. This is a good one. Portable romantic reader. Like, these are great gateway texts that have so many good ideas, so many good authors and different samples of genre from those periods in them. And they brought out like black spine paperbacks of Faulkner, Conrad, Dorothy Parker. Maybe Stephen Crane even had his reprinted. So they definitely have done them. They originally did a single Russian reader, and then they split it into 19th and 20th century Russian readers. And the 20th century Russian reader definitely has a black spine trade paperback. So those, I think, are all admirable texts that could be reprinted. That'd be on my wish list. And then we need volumes 6 and 7 of In Search of Lost Time once the copyright expires here in the U.S. Gotta finish out that shelf. So that's what I've got on the Penguin Classics book tag, the Classy edition. So hope everybody's well and safe. Thank you.